Hello. Welcome to the 22nd of Decem-Baron 2020. And today I just want to take a few moments to talk about the Adventurers League of Dungeons & Dragons. So if you're not aware, Adventurers League is it's sort of, for lack of a better term, it's organized D&D, essentially. It's helpful for those who don't have a group themselves, and they can go to a store or to a location that supports Adventurers League, and they can just hop in and play. Essentially, it's a sort of Adventurers League is it's sort of a thing where people come in and out, can hop from group to group as is convenient for them, and they can bring their same character wherever they go. Really, generally. It's a bit more strict in the way it's played, because Adventurers League is specifically from like a program from Wizards of the Coast. Then every time a new published adventure comes out, that is the official adventure of Adventurers League, and that's what that season of Adventurers League is all about. I believe there are some loyalty rewards here and there. There are like. Instead of getting treasure naturally, there's a treasure point system and that kind of thing. But yeah, basically they're just strict rules in general in Adventurers League that are there for the purpose of allowing people to leave a group and go to another Adventurers League group and not be unbalanced, essentially. Giving everyone, making it fair for everybody. Adventurers League is generally run in board and game stores where Dungeons & Dragons material is sold, usually board game stores, tabletop role-playing game stores, that sort of thing. Also, Adventurers League is run at conventions as well. Of course, before the pandemic, that would often happen in like Comic-Con or things like that, or PAX or the like. Anyway, Adventurers League basically just thrives on people who volunteer to be dungeon masters for a location, and then people when they hear that they can just walk in and play D&D, getting a character ready and just like hop into an adventure without needing a group themselves, then that's great. And around the time that probably more than a year ago, I guess, at this point. Has it been more than a year? Yeah, I guess it has. Wow. Anyway, it occurred to me that there were a few game stores where I lived, and I remembered that they had Adventurers League. That's my very first Dungeons & Dragons campaign ever was Adventurers League in a local game store. And so a thought occurred to me. Because I was working part-time, and I still am, and I thought, could I be a volunteer DM? I heard through the grapevine somewhere that my local game store was looking for volunteer dungeon masters for Adventurers League. And so I went over to this store, and there are a couple different stores. I went to the first one, the one that I played my first session of D&D at, and I asked them if they needed help, if they needed volunteer DMs. And the store person said, kind of, and whatever. Basically I asked them like what the process was. And the clerk kind of I don't know, they seemed like, they seemed to say something along the lines of like, we could use some help or whatever. I asked them if there's anything that I would need to do, like is there a process, is there anything I would need to bring for it? And they said, you can bring your own stuff, or you could bring something like this and make your players very happy. And the thing that he pointed to was a three-dimensional pirate ship, basically. It had a grid on it and everything. So this was around the time that Ghosts of Saltmarsh was brand new. All right, so having like model ships made sense for something like that. I just had this weird vibe that they wanted me to buy it, and I don't use miniatures a lot. I certainly could. I have no issues against them. It's just that I usually don't like bring them with me. I don't usually have a map or miniatures prepared or anything like that. But I use miniatures or a map of some kind if things get kind of crazy. So anyway, it didn't seem to me that that particular location had an urgent need of dungeon masters, and I just got a weird feeling that, well, they I don't know, they seem to encourage me to buy something from them for adventures. I don't know what was going on there. So I went to another location, this time closer to where I lived, a little bit closer anyway. I still would need to take transit over there. I couldn't walk there. But they were much more open. They were a lot more like the head dungeon master was a lot more casual. It was a lot more casual and laid back and like welcoming and friendly. I chatted with him for a little bit, and he was like, "Yeah, sure, by all means." And so yeah, so I basically made it a routine that once a week, I would go to the local game store to be a volunteer dungeon master for Adventurers League. Now, before the first session, before this, I had read up on like the various different rules of Adventurers League, and I asked him like, how do we run those things? And the head DM was basically like, just stick to just stick to the adventure as much as possible. Don't do homebrew stuff, and that's it. It was just a very casual way of running things. So which I didn't mind at all. I personally wasn't a huge fan of all this. Like, I understood why the Adventurers League rules were there to keep things balanced for people, but honestly, it was more of a sort of like walk-in D&D essentially. It's just kind of I was able to provide an additional table for people to play, and I started, of course, with the new adventure at the time, Ghosts of Saltmarsh. And then that led into the next, eventually, a few months later, a number of months later, we went through all 7 adventures, by the way, with this special group of players and some crazy shenanigans, like, someone getting a pet lobster and getting that lobster leather armor, as well as like a glove with 6 jewels on it, like an infinity gauntlet and all this ridiculous stuff. But they played through the adventures and they had a lot of fun with the Ghost of Saltmarsh adventures. And then after that would be Descent into Avernus. And then, however, Descent into Avernus didn't pan out all the way through, especially since several people had to leave and whatever. And so now we were going through the Acquisitions Incorporated adventure. And once we would be done with that, then I would go into the newest published adventure, which is Icewind Dale: Rime of the Frost Maiden. But yeah, there's a lot of there'd be some of those regulars, right, who'd come every week or come as often as they can, and eventually those regulars would have to leave for whenever or they don't show up anymore. And usually I'm not told why, and that's fine. Adventurers League is all about just coming and going when you can or when you want. Sometimes people have a change in work schedule or something like that. There'd be these fun players that come for a while, but then they just stop showing up. Or there'd be an evening where just 3 or 4 people just randomly come in, hearing about D&D or Adventurers League happening in the store's basement. So it's a kind of thing where you have to be able to improvise and basically make sure that everyone has a good time, whether it be just sit tight today and just watch for today, and then next time, if you're here next time, then we can get you we can help you make a character, that kind of thing. So yeah, quite sometimes challenging with the very chaotic turnover, but rather rewarding because a lot of people go there because they don't really have a group of their own. So I've seen siblings go. I've seen a couple times a father take his son or sons, or a father take his children to Adventurers League and things like that. And eventually, my wife Blaze ended up being a volunteer dungeon master as well, and she's currently running. She decided to run Curse of Strahd for this one player because she had a group of people doing Descent into Avernus, but then the pandemic happened. COVID-19 happened, and essentially Adventurers League locally has either slowed down or stopped. Right now it has stopped. We haven't played a game in a while. We don't anticipate playing Adventurers. Adventurers League is not open there at the store in an official capacity for at least another little while yet, until January at the very least. So it's unfortunate, and there is one player who has been there pretty much like all the time from the very beginning when I first started as a volunteer DM. So I know she's looking forward to having that having Adventures League come back. But yeah, I don't know if I have very much else to say about that. I'm just I think it's mostly I share this mainly to say that I um, it's there are many ways you can play D&D. You can get friends together. You can, even if you've never played D&D before, you can still be a successful dungeon master when, as long as you are among people you enjoy playing a game with and you all have fun. Then, or you can look around to see if there is a, adventurers league going on. You can just like walk in and just like participate with your character, and the dungeon master is just expected to help get you into the group and all of that, which is what happened with me the first time I played. So, yeah, that is my experience with Adventures League in general. And well, as things get better in the next year or so, I look forward to helping more people, giving more people opportunities to play Dungeons and Dragons, because that's one thing I really enjoy doing as a dungeon master. One of the more fulfilling things for me, besides the world building and the voice acting and the things like that, and along with also, of course, the vital component of helping people have fun and enjoy themselves. It's also just like there's a lot of people out there I know who want to try Dungeons and Dragons but don't feel they have the opportunity yet. I know I was there for a few months, and I was lucky enough to find some friends to go with to Adventurers League at the local game store. But then that group of friends, we ended up breaking off from that because the group was too big, and I've told that story already. But I'm just saying that in most cases, well, I hope you are if you are interested in playing a game of Dungeons and Dragons, I hope you find an opportunity. You can even just ask around. I hope you either find or make an opportunity to play, because I find it very fulfilling. A very good way to spend time with other people. Very good way to, if you need if you need an outlet or an escape of some kind, Dungeons and Dragons can be a very wholesome and worthwhile outlet for your creativity, or just a break from the daily tedium and that sort of thing. So yeah, thank you for being here. Thanks for listening, and until tomorrow, all the best.